All right. In addition to a sort of a getaway from our aside into the graphical capabilities of GUI applications, one of the other things I want to talk to you about is a component that I think I briefly mentioned 2 weeks ago when we talked about. I can't remember if it was in this class or my other class that asked the question about getting scroll bars to appear when we need them. And so I want to talk to you a little bit about a component that allows us to add scroll bars to certain types of controls. There is a class called the J scroll pane. The J scroll pane is essentially a window that sits on top of a text area, and it allows you to move the window around the component that can be scrolled. Now, when I say a component that can be scrolled, I really mean a component that can have scroll bars. Not every component can support the J scroll pane class, or essentially the ability to have a scroll bar to move around the component. To do that, the component specifically needs to implement something called the scrollable interface. And we can find that out by looking up the various components in the Java development kit's documentation. So we've gone into the JDK documentation a few times. In this class, we've pulled up the website and we've looked at it and we've searched a few things. Before you use this component with other items, we're going to want to make sure that those items will support it. And so we may need to look that up in the documentation before we use it. One component that I can tell you does take advantage of the J scroll pane in order to provide you access to areas of it that may be hidden is the text area control. Now, we've used this text area control when we have created our memo pad, and when in a couple of the in-class exercises we did 2 weeks ago, we had the text area as an option in our components. And so we can make sure that we can add scroll bars to that in case we have more than however many lines we've decided to make visible, or however many columns we've decided to make visible. The way this works is that you create a J scroll pane object, and then we create the J scroll pane object, we create the text area, we add the text area to the scroll pane along with what scroll bars we want visible. Do we want the horizontal how do we want the vertical scroll bars and the horizontal scroll bars to appear? And then we add the scroll pane to the window or to the panel or whatever is holding, whatever container is going to be holding our control. The idea is that the text area lives inside the scroll pane and the scroll pane gets added. And that's kind of the trick that we need to be aware of. You'll see here is this sample code that I have on the screen. We create the scroll pane. It's the class name is J scroll pane. So we've created our object here. Then when we instantiate it, when we call the constructor, we have to supply it with the control that's getting the scroll bars, along with the settings for the vertical scroll bar and the settings for the horizontal scroll bar. And there are a number of options available to us. We can take a look at that. Let me see if I can pull up the information on this. Can I perform show Java doc here? Let me pull up a web browser here and see what we can do. Let me resize this to fit. Our little window here. Let's take a look at this. So here are the options available to us. Horizontal scroll bar always. That makes sure that the scroll bar is always seen. Or we could do horizontal scroll bar as needed, or horizontal scroll bar never. So essentially we can have it displayed only when needed, have it always displayed, or never display it. We can do the same thing with the vertical scroll bar, always, needed, and never. So those are our options that we can set when we create the scroll bar object. And you'll see that I've called that object scroll pane. When I'm finished creating that, I've added display, which is the name of our text area. Instead of adding the text area to the window, I've gone ahead and added scroll pane to the window. And since we were using border layout by default, I told it to display in the center. But as you can see, you add the control, in this case the text area, to the scroll pane, and then you add the scroll pane to the form or to the window. You'll get your opportunity to create an example application that utilizes the scroll pane when you click over to the next slide and work on exercise 6. When you are finished, you can move to the next window and we will step through that application and again demonstrate the capabilities of this new control. When you're finished with that, we'll move on to mouse events.